Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Glimpse into Infinity. Today's episode, we have our special guest, Jesus. He'll give a little bit more about himself, but this episode will primarily be about the economy as it is today, right? We'll ask questions like, should the rich be rich? And we'll split this episode into two different parts, so it's convenient for you guys to watch. So, Jesus, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So, my name is Jesus. I recently graduated from NJIT, class of 2022, and I'm really happy to be here.
All right, sweet.
Man.
And we'll get started then. So right off the bat, so a lot of people today argue, like specifically in the middle class, that they argue like the rich have too much money, right? They have way too much money, and they should instead donate to charity, give it to the poor, just give some of us that money, right? I wanted to ask you, or you, and also Juan, if you guys think the 1% should exist today.
So when you're talking about the 1%, you're talking about people usually that make above 250K a year, because that usually what qualifies you in the 1%.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you really look at all these like job occupations in the 1%, they're very, very like, these are only jobs that you can get through some sort of connection, or through some sort of like generational wealth. Like, if you own a private equity fund was your father's, and he was your grandfather's, and or you own real estate and you bring in monthly $250 a month. So a lot of these like 1% jobs are either inherited or through connections. For someone like in the lower middle class or in the lower class, it's almost impossible to be in the 1% in one generation, right? It might take a couple of generations, 2-3 generations, for you to really get to that certain point. So when you ask like, should that top 1% exist, it's really hard for them not to exist. So because how do you regulate how many buildings you can get, how many things you can invest to? So it's a really, really tricky question for the 1%, should they exist. Ethically, no, they shouldn't exist. But then again, it's like, if you want to combat that, how do you regulate that?
Exactly.
So
It's like you said, like the generational wealth. It's like you're working off, you leave your kids like $100,000. Then they keep working on this $100,000. They leave their kids $1 million, and it's like, when do you stop them? When do you stop them?
I think it might never stop as long as rich people growing up, their kids, they go to private schools, they're known with this, like, they grow up with this mindset that they have to protect the family wealth, they have to keep investing, they have to keep going. So really, it's like, unless like their children are not so like as motivated as their parents used to be, which is like most of the time the case. Like, that's how generational wealth ends. But yeah, like I said, it's like, for you to really be in the top 1%, you have to have some crazy invention. Be a businessman. I'm not saying that it's not impossible. It definitely is impossible.
It's just hard.
It's just you're gonna have a lot of obstacles coming from the lower middle class.
So then, like, when do you have too much money? Is kind of like what I was getting at. Which is why I asked the first question, because a lot of times you see people like, oh, they have way too much money. Like, what do you even spend that money on, right? Like, what are you wasting that money on? Like, you should instead help the lower class and the middle class by giving them some money or doing whatever, having programs or whatever. So when do you draw the line between living comfortably and like living exuberantly?
I think when you're able to live comfortably is when you don't have to worry about housing, food, or anything above that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you live in like a $5 million mansion. You could be living in a $500,000 house. So if you're able to cover that, everything's paid off, you're living comfortably, then any money after that then would be like, that's kind of sort of when you start to draw the line. But then again, you have some people that spend millions of dollars on a boat. They don't, so that might seem a little bit unethical to do. So back to like your philanthropy question. It just really depends on like the point of view that you view the world, right? So like, I know that a lot of like people in the 1%, they don't think that it's like their job to, it's not my job to cater to other people or to give my money away. Although like it comes down to a certain point, like a philanthropy question, like the Rockefeller.
Yeah.
So he was like titan of industry. So when you have a lot of money, when you can pretty much buy anything you want, it's not really money that you seek, but like sort of the power. So when you have too much money, you start changing the world around you.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that he did when he opened the Rockefeller Center in Manhattan. It was like it was more of a demonstration of his money and power, and at that time it was like one of the greatest,
buildings around.
Yeah, the Rockefeller Center, and then he gave most of his money away, in charities and stuff like that right before he died. But even with giving all that away, generations ahead, the Rockefellers are still living very, very comfortably.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times the problem that people have with the 1%ers is not that they sometimes have like these huge amounts of money. Is how they obtain this money. For example, the ones I get thrown most shade at is like Jeff Bezos. How they get his money through Amazon. And what does Amazon do? They have their workers spinning bottles. They have like horrible working conditions. So that's how he obtained his wealth. Elon Musk, he got like, they were saying how he got like, I think it was like $30 billion bonus. While Tesla is going to cut off like 10% of his staff. So he obtained all of this while he's leaving people unemployed. So it feels like they like aim mostly towards the ones that like got it like through these unethical ways. But then you see like other not so rich people but still rich. You see like Bernie Sanders, AOC. They don't really get that shade thrown at them because they obtain their wealth through like, I guess, more ethical, more good means than these other people.
And something like about Elon Musk, he's making like all the workers go back into the office. He's doing this for a reason. There's not enough cubicles for all the workers and then some of the workers are not even within the facilities or the offices. Sometimes they're like a couple states across, and when you have to move. And so he knows that not all of these like people are going to be able to go back to work. And right now he's having some issues with like hiring and stuff like that. And to try to outbalance the sheets, like to make sure that Tesla stays profitable, he has to lay off some workers. So if you fire someone in America, they have to receive severance packages. And that costs money. Usually like a year or like 2 years of severance to get paid. So what Elon Musk did, he's like making everyone go back to work in hopes that not everyone can go back to work. And they decide to leave and he doesn't have to pay severance.
And
it's like these titans of industry, they're always like they're always gonna find loops, and it's like I said, how do you regulate something like that?
Like you can't just take away their money. That's what a lot of people want to do, like just take away their money, but I think like looking at it from like, if you were rich, right, and let's say it wasn't generational wealth, but like let's say you started a business and it just became extremely popular, influential, and you're making all this money, right? Someone who's rich could say something along the lines like, why should I give you money if I worked hard for this money?
And I guess it's a question that we can't really answer unless we really do make it there, and even then, like, money is like, it changes your perspective on the world. It really does. And once you have enough money, you start to look at the world in a very, very different way. You start to find ways to look for more money, and you're using your money to make more money, and it's just your perspective on life and the things that you value is just for sure.
It's easier to do that, to make more money when you already have money, Because,
and like a thing is like, if you have $1,000 to make $10,000, you have to get lucky. You have to make 100% of that 10 times, from 1,000 to 10,000, right? Now if you have $100,000 to make 10,000, you only need 10% of that once. So it's so much more easier. If you have money to make more money, you can almost, once you have enough money, you can make millions and millions of dollars almost risk-free.
That's what I was going to ask you. It's almost like there's no risk.
Or live comfortably. Like some people with stocks, they just do like dividend paying stocks. They put enough money in there so they get dividends every month, and that's like their paycheck.
And then the thing with dividends, it grows exponentially. So the first 10 years you might not see like, you know, a really big, but in 30 years,
if you reinvest it,
if you reinvest your dividends, you could have a really good amount of wealth by the time you retire.
I think most people won't do that.
It's just because I feel like nowadays people are born with this idea of like a get rich like type of thing. But you know, from what I've known and from what I've learned, almost every millionaire now and almost every wealthy person now, they got rich through the boring way, through the investing, reinvesting, buying things, and it takes time, and that's what a lot of people don't have patience to do. And maybe that's why a lot of people can never get there.
So then if you have all this money, right, let's say you were rich, right, or Juan, let's say you were rich, but like you're living, like we were saying earlier, not just living comfortably, you're living exuberantly, right? You have so much money, you don't even know what to do with it. What do you think you should do with that money? Like if you guys were rich, like, because we're saying like, oh, like what should they do? But like what would we do, you know?
I would definitely, I feel like I would definitely invest in, reinvest in like some of my money if I had money to throw away. Into some tools and some help with like in STEM field students. So you know, we all graduated from NJIT. We've all been to the Math Student Center. We've all, you know, I feel like if I had enough money, I would definitely try to make help more accessible than it is now. So maybe, you know, upgrading the Math Tutoring Center, upgrading, you know, the computer systems, upgrading, you know, really just the classrooms, smart boards. That's what I would do if I had enough money to. Because people who come to NJIT, people who want to better themselves, they're doing it, and in my train of thought is like, if someone wants to be someone better in life, if someone wants to not just like, you know, stay where they are, I would gladly help those people without a doubt.
Exactly.
And not just that I'm like trying to like hoard wealth or anything. But there's a key difference in giving money away and helping people.
Like exactly, like assisting.
Exactly. I would do something similar. I would like basically reinvest it back into the communities, because by improving the communities and what surrounds people, they live in these communities every day, you eventually end up helping them, like you said, make things more accessible to them. More classes, more courses, more facilities, these kind of things, and also helping like the communities where I came from as well. Because think about it, like it's rare from like someone always like gets rich from anywhere in the world. Like you meet rich, there's a lot of rich people. So if everyone helps back where they came from, it's like all of these places will be helped.
I guess the key thing is that like the people that you're helping, that they want to be helped.
Exactly.
And that they want to do something better and they want to be better. Because my thing is that like, even if I was like, you know, money to throw away, but it's just really hard for me to picture a scenario where I'm just giving money away to everyone. And like, it's just like, it's really hard for me to picture ever doing that, even if I had a lot of money, knowing that they are going to go and like spend it on like luxuries and spend it on, you know, and like silly things. So it's knowing that it's really hard for me to just give that satisfaction to other people, knowing where I came from.
Like the good intentions.
Yeah, the good intentions. So, you know, there's this thing that I always tell my mom, because my mom is super nice to everybody, but there comes a certain point where people try to take advantage of that, trying to take of my mom's thing. So I always tell my mom, like, I'm not nice, you know, I'm not a nice person, but I am kind. That I'm not gonna do certain things to like, if someone asks me for money just because I have it, I'm not always gonna say yes. You know, after a lot of circumstances, I'm not always gonna go out of my way for people if it jeopardizes my relationship to other people. So I'm not always a yes man. I'm not nice, but I am kind. If I see someone struggling, I know that I can help. I would. And that brings us to the point, like, would you give your money away if you had a lot of it?
Exactly.
Yes and no. I would give it away to people that are trying to do something better. People that are like first generation students, maybe who can't afford a laptop, can't afford textbooks, maybe who can't afford tuition, people in the STEM field, like that, because that's where I came from, and luckily this country has given me the opportunity to study here. So, and if I could help people that are stopping due to financial issues, that's like where I would spend my money on.
And people that already took the first step, like all these people you mentioned are people that are already in college. They took the step of signing up, going through the test, taking the test, and already in there. Now they just need a little bit of help in order to succeed.
Yeah, if I could help maybe like a student who can't afford a laptop, can't really afford all these things, or like a need to study, I would gladly help without a doubt. That's what I would spend my money on.
What would you spend your money on?
Well, like similarly, I would spend my money.
What about you, man?
Me, it's difficult to say because like so much money. Like, what do you even do with it? Like, I know a lot of people's first reaction is like, oh, donate it to charity, right? But like
in order to help.
But I feel like it's more like action. So like for money, it's interesting because instead of like trying to like help people directly, like by giving them money, because like I don't think you should do that, and I'll get to that later. I think that we should instead help on already existing factors to like help the poor or the needy with like soup kitchens, or anything like that, because like they're struggling, they're not getting enough food as it is. There's lines they have like to close down. There's some people that aren't even eating and are going to soup kitchens and they don't get food for the day. That's just how it is. And it's not because like they don't care about them. They just run out of food. So it's just like one of the reasons like there's like a lot of things that need money. So it's difficult for me to say like, oh, I would only do this or only do that, because so many things today are just lacking in resources and supplies, whether it be colleges or soup kitchens or just things around the community. And you can't help everyone at the end of the day.
And it's impossible because the world doesn't lie on your shoulders.
Exactly. Like you can only take so. Like you're human.
Like a good example that just came to mind is instead of spending like $1 million buying food to give to the homeless, which is just gonna last a couple of days. To be honest, it's like 3 meals a day with like all the homeless there is around. It's just gonna last a couple of days, weeks probably. Instead, you can take a small group or like even one person of this homeless community that really has the characteristic and the drive. Give them a $50,000 salary, put them in a church, and have them run a soup kitchen. Because these soup kitchens, they self-funded eventually. It's like they just open up and people bring food in there. People bring donations and just pay him a salary, $50,000 will last him 20 years or lower. To be honest, he will live off that. He will have his money and he can help the community for all these years to come.
And the reason why I say like it's funny how we all agree that giving people money isn't the answer. Right, but then if you look during COVID, that's exactly what happened with the stimulus checks. And a lot of people thought that this money was good, it was going to go for bills. But then you see things like buying luxury stuff, buying new shoes, buying new clothes. And then when taxes came, they're like, hey, yo, where's my money? So I think that's just like a perfect example of why you shouldn't just give people money. Because I feel like...
And then the only thing that the $1,200 fueled was just inflation, along with like the CARES Act and all these other bailouts, and that's why maybe we're seeing like record high like gas. We're seeing record high rents. Everything is skyrocketing. The food, especially like healthy food like vegetables, chicken, raw meat, it's really at an all-time high right now.
Milk, bro. It's crazy high.
GG.
So it's like, giving people directly money is not the answer. And not everyone is really good at like managing their finances. So like you said, they're all gonna go and spend it on like luxuries and stuff like that.
I saw Twitter, it was like, I feel like I'm getting this stimulus check taken out of me in these gas prices.
The gas prices. And the thing with gas prices is that we're not even at a peak yet.
Oh no, they speculate like $6.50 by like
by August. And it's been going up 20 cents almost every week, and it's crazy how no one just says anything.
It's just like happening.
I noticed one day because a couple months ago it was like everyone was scared, gas prices were going up, and I'm just driving around like a couple weeks ago and I see it's like $4.50. I'm like, wait a minute, this thing's back up, and no one said a word.
No one says anything.
No one said a word. and now it's back crazy high. I went to Chicago a couple weeks ago, and that thing was almost $6 over there. It was $5 something.
It was $5 like last year.
Yeah.
And I saw in the news in some California town, it's almost $10.
Yeah.
Like $96.
It's like $8.99 unleaded, and then shooting is like 10 something.
Yeah.
You gotta run it like Flintstones, pick it up and start running your feet.
Good ass, man. Well, then going back to the stimulus checks, and you mentioned the CARES Act.
Yeah.
A lot of people, debate. It's like, well, they're already giving it out. It's like, I'll be dumb if I don't take what belongs to me, because they already said this like $1 million apart for CARES Act. You know, so as a student, you qualified.
I did it.
Yeah, some people don't take it. Some people are like, oh no, this and that, inflation. But it's like, whether you take it or not, it's already set out. It won't matter.
Yeah, you're right.
I definitely did. I did it, and I only did it because Brian told me to.
Oh yeah.
Like, he reminded me, like, hey, did you do the CARES Act? And like, when is that due? He was like, today.
I was like, bad. Oh yeah, I did it.
And then I think I got like $2,500.
Damn.
Yeah. Because I told him that I needed like a new laptop, and then my laptop broke.
You needed money for food.
And money for food, and
Please, I'm hungry.
I'm dying.
Hey man, the world's already like ending soon now. Like,
I see what you mean.
But I mean, if it's already made out for you, I can't think of a reason why not to take it.
So you say you're dumb if you don't take advantage of it.
Yeah. It's not taking advantage, low-key. Because it's already set up. Like, it's already taken out of the budget.
Yeah.
But technically, under those characteristics, like, you didn't really need the money. Like, not you in per se, but like other people. Because I know people who just took it to take it. You know? I'm not going to mention names, but...
No, I mean... Yeah.
But that's what I mean, like...
Was I going to die without it? No. But it definitely did help.
Yeah, like, of course all money helps. Like, money's like a shortcut for a lot of stuff today. So, like, regardless if we need it or not, like, you would take it. But I wanted to ask that question too, kind of like as a bridge to the next question. Like, why do you think, because like this is just like one piece of like the big puzzle, right? So the question I wanted to ask was, why do you think people become so greedy, right? And not only greedy, like I'm not saying like only rich people can be greedy. I'm saying like also us can be greedy. Yeah. So why do you like, where do you think this comes from? Or do you think people just develop it as they grow older?
I mean, it definitely, like, from what I've seen, it's people usually that go from the lower class to middle class that I see the most amount of greed. And I think it really stems from growing up without nothing, and then it changes from like in a very few years. And maybe you're not like wealthy, but the difference between like where you are now and where you started is so huge that you just want more of it, right? So you want more, and the thing is that like greed, once you have money, it's really easy to like overlook greed, and most of these people won't even know that they're being greedy unless they either told to, or they really have to have some like self-evaluation about the morals, and like they have to get a reality check. They have to, and that's the thing with like people like in the top percent too. It's like they grew up with everything given to them, you know, the personal chefs, private schools. The word no when it comes to finances is rarely like, you know, a thing. So when they go out in the real world, to them it's so normal, it's so like part of them, that when they realize that not everyone is like that, maybe they have a tendency to protect what they have, or gather more of what they have. So I mean, I guess it's like you can look at greed from two very different perspectives. One from the lower class, one from the you know, the 1%. The 1% trying to protect what they have, trying to get more of what they have, and then the lower class being greedy to get to that 1%. You know, so it's like greed is definitely some of the things that you overlook, and with money and with enough money, believe it or not, everyone becomes greedy. It's something so hard to ignore, something so hard to overcome, because once you have money and you have lived comfortably, especially if you have, you're gonna do whatever it takes to protect.
It's hard to go back. It's hard.
Like you said.
But like, I feel like the greed comes from like, for example, let's say there's the three of us here, and like let's say you don't get your CARES Act or your stimulus check because you're like, I don't need it. Why should I get it?
Exactly.
Well, then me and Jesus, we're like, we don't need it, but we want it, we'll like it.
Yeah.
Give me that. And then we come in with like some brand new Jordans or some new iPhone, while you're still using like your raggedy ass shoes. And it's like you didn't need new shoes, but you will like, and then you're like, damn. And next time I'm gonna get my money.
And the thing is that like the thing that made it like, at least for me, it wasn't about like, I'm not taking that money away from anybody else.
Exactly.
That money is being printed. It comes from thin air. It's like
it's already set out.
And then if I'm getting 2,500, he's getting 2,500, you're getting 2,500. Companies, corporations are getting millions and millions of dollars in bailout money.
Yeah, exactly. Just like you said, this is more predominant on the lower class because a lot of people, they're like, oh damn, he got like 5 oranges, well I got 2, and it's like I have more. Exactly. And it's just like that's when they grow to this middle class status. Now they're able to like take a lot more, to be honest, and just keep it in because that's their mindset. When you go to like more, I would say like predominant like white towns, I saw a lot on my trips that they have like these log stations where like you can buy log and like put like the amount that you bought for on like a little box, but they just leave it out there. They just leave the logs of wood out there. Like they're not checking it. So you just go, they have like categories like $1, $5, $10. You take yours and then you put the money on the box. And it's completely based on trust. And like my dad was like, nah, that wouldn't work where we're from. That would be empty within the minute.
And the thing is that like in when, like, you know, the wealthy towns and everything, they don't have a need to steal $1 worth of log, $5 worth of log.
So you were saying about they don't have a need.
Oh, to steal $1. So like, you know, in those towns, people with you know, better financial structure, that they don't really have a need to steal $2 worth of log. You know? And then someone is cutting the log, someone is doing like the work for it, and they're just paying for it, and they know that if they just start taking the log without paying money, they're gonna lose that whatever they have little structure going on, or nice exchange between, like, you know, whoever's cutting the log and them paying them. And so it's like a trust system, but it only works because their finances are really, you know, they're settled. They don't have a need to steal $5.
So then that's when does the bridge happen? When you get like these multi-billionaires, these company CEOs, these people with like a lot of power, that people claim that they treat their workers in like this poor, horrible working conditions. You know, don't you think that that goes through their mind? It's like, oh, the people that work for me have like their families back at home, they have kids, they have all this.
They definitely don't think about that.
So when do you think that bridge happens?
It's really hard to understand because none of us are billionaires.
None of us been there.
You know, we might become and get to a point where we're better off financially, like especially once we all start working, and you don't really care about the small stuff and, you know, about giving and stuff like that. But the whole billionaire treating your co-worker, it's really hard because first of all, we're not billionaires and we don't have any business. We don't have any business and we don't have any workers. So it's I can't really answer that.
I think it's because they don't see it for themselves. You know, a lot of times billionaires don't even act or interact with their workers. Like, why would they even step into the manufacturing plant? Like, that doesn't even cross their mind.
And if they do, it's because of some
marketing
type of stuff. Jeff Bezos.
Like they walk around shaking the workers'
hand. Take a picture for them. Like,
the top propaganda.
Jeff Bezos loves his workers.
Here's your pee bottle.
I brought you a new one.
But going back to the question we asked earlier, because this whole segment basically came off the fact of me asking, like, why do people become greedy? I wanted to chip in and ask you guys if you think that the reason why this is kind of due to society and the kind of like the work culture that we're kind of a part of today in the US. I feel like a lot of other countries, like, they work harder, like, let's say, I don't know, Japan or South Korea, like they're really like working.
Shanghai, China,
they
work like 6 days, 10 hours a week.
Some of them sleep at the office and like they wake up right back to work.
And Japan is like that. Because there's a lot of competition, and then,
or else someone else would just take it. Someone else is willing to do it.
Exactly, it's so competitive. But what was I gonna say? So I think I was gonna ask you guys, do you think it's because of society and like the work culture that we're part of today? And alongside that, the reason why I say society is because I feel like a lot of people were just working to, like, I wouldn't necessarily call it greedy, but they're just working to work. right? A lot of people work to work. They don't have a purpose for this money. They're just saving money to save money. And they're like, oh, I might as well buy a car, or I might as well buy a house, or I might as well invest it, but then they don't know how to invest. So they just keep working because you always have to work.
Yeah.
And even if you ask other people oh, do I have to work 40 hours, they're just going to laugh at you. That's just the norm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But why is that?
Actually, the whole 40 hours, the 5 days a week, that idea was brought up by Henry Ford.
Yeah, during the industrial
revolution. Because before then they were working 7 days a week, 6 days a week, 10 hours. It took, I don't know how many years, a good amount of time, hundreds of years, for that to change, and it had to be someone in a lot of power like Henry Ford, where he owns a lot of the manufacturing
and the cars.
So I think the next step into that, so that became the norm for up until now, right? But I think now in the next couple decades, especially with this remote working, and a lot of things are going to change in the next 10 years. Definitely the 40 hours a week day is going to change in the next couple of years. We saw a huge change of people having jobs in California and living in South America and making $250 a year, and $250 a year in South America, you're basically a millionaire. You're
basically top 1%.
Yeah, top 1%.
Top 0.1%.
So the whole idea of 40-hour workday, it was it first started by Henry Ford, but I think now with remote working and just people job hopping, and it's definitely going to change, because the thing that I've seen is that there's a shortage in workers in almost every sector, and I think that stemmed from COVID, and that brings me to your next question of why do you think there was an increase in new businesses? But I think that's the wrong approach, because you have to ask how many jobs closed down, how many businesses closed down because of COVID. So maybe it was just a shift. Maybe we didn't get any new businesses, but a lot of people shifted, and this is also coming from my personal life, my dad or my uncles. They were working before COVID at this bakery shop for 17 years. 17 years, nothing changed. And once COVID hit, the bakery shut down, and then they just started freelancing. And in those 2-3 years that my family, especially the man in my family, started working, they have job hop for more than 4 jobs. So, but COVID definitely plays a huge role in the 40-hour work week, and that's gonna change, because my parents, being immigrants, are really scared to find another job that's gonna pay less. They have to study it, so they were stuck there for 17 years of their life, and just 4 years they have managed to job hop and make more what they were making at the bakery in those 4 years, the 3 years that COVID has been a thing.
I've also seen that a lot. People are tolerating less poor working conditions.
And that might change too with Amazon, and Amazon becoming a union, and
and Starbucks. Lately, Starbucks has they've been unionizing a lot of Starbucks and stuff.
And that what really easy, and it sucks, because really easy for companies to buy product that would just be to increase the price and everything. So is it really a win if they unionize, but everything costs more now? So it's one of those debates where the corporations are still gonna be at the top. It's really hard for them to lose, and that really sucks, because there's just so much that the workers can do. And
and especially during COVID, something you brought up interesting was there's not enough jobs, which is why new businesses opened. But I feel like the jobs were there during COVID, but people just didn't want to work, and I feel like people took advantage of this with the unemployment. And
definitely,
people why would I go back if I'm getting paid more, not doing anything, not looking, or not actually looking for a job, but just not wanting to work in a job because I'll get paid more off the unemployment checks. You get me? So it's was there no jobs, or just people didn't want to work?
And the thing with that is part of it was a lot of places did shut down, and people were actually out of jobs for let's say a couple months until we started reopening again. But even when we reopened, not everyone went back. And it is exactly that, because they were getting paid, more than what they were getting at job, and then stay home, do nothing. And like I said before, when you're at home, you don't do anything. You start to find new hobbies to distract yourself. You have a little bit of money saved, so it's almost normal to open up a lot of these like small businesses, like small like. And usually these small businesses are really good at marketing through like Instagram and stuff like that. And it's just easier for them to, once we have technology and like social media communication, and a lot of people did see like a good investment opportunity in there. So that, like, speaking from my experience, my dad, he quit his bakery job, and even though he was getting unemployment, he was always like job hopping because everyone always. They needed someone, and he would also have like a little extra money on the side, but eventually he had this really great opportunity to open up like a smoothie place, almost like a fruit stand. Yeah. So he took advantage of that. He used the money that he got from COVID, and now he has like small businesses in a small business where he sells like produce and stuff like that, and he uses the produce that he buys to make smoothies, natural juices and stuff like that. So it's like, it's not that really that there wasn't like jobs lost. Yeah, there was just a shift in job applications, and maybe that's why we're having a lot of supply chain issues, because people that had their jobs for so long have rotated. And you need to hire new people. You need to train them. You need to. It takes all that a while for it to settle in. Yeah. So,
and like these sectors that we saw that like were like sometimes overloaded with like people working in them are now like under. Yeah. Like they need people desperately, like nurses. Yeah. Like nurses was saturated. The market for nurses was saturated. Everyone wanted to be a nurse. Yeah. And boom, after COVID, everyone needs a nurse now.
And have you heard about like traveling nurses and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, traveling nurses. And they make good money. Yeah. My friend wants to become a travel nurse.
So like during COVID and when hospitals were like at its peak, nurses were short staffed. They were getting underpaid, overwork. Sometimes it was like mandatory for them to work overtime or otherwise. And then, people always gonna find a way to people get tired, people get fed up. Yeah. So what they did is that they would quit their jobs, hire like a manager, and then the manager would work out contracts to work at specific hospitals for a specific amount of weeks. So they would let's say that they hire the manager. The manager gets them the job that this hospital in Newark needs a nurse for 8 weeks, and they're paying $3,000 a week. Then they write a small contract. They would go work at the hospital. That one finishes. There's another hospital in Florida that needs nurses, and they're paying $5,000 a week. Oof. So they would call traveling nurses, and sometimes even funnier, because hospitals didn't want to raise their wages. The same hospitals that didn't want to give them raise wages, would hire them back as traveling nurses, getting 2.5 times more than what they were getting before. Yeah.
Wow. Because they needed them, right?
Yeah.
Also because now with like COVID, there's random spikes in different cities and stuff. They can't have like all these staff working and not doing anything, hoping for waiting for a spike. They keep it at level, and then when a spike happens, they get all these travel nurses. And also travel nurses assist like natural disasters and all. Like something happens in like Florida or whatever, they go down there and they pay for their flight, their stay. Yeah. Wow. My friend wants to do that. They make good money. Yeah.
Sounds like FEMA in a way. Because FEMA, they help with disasters relief. Once something comes, you can ask for reimbursements for like property or damages done from hurricanes, stuff like that.
Their salaries is comparable to like engineers, if not higher.
Engineers, they make well above. Probably last year, I'd seen some TikToks where some nurses were making above $200,000 a year.
That's pretty good.
Good for them.
Honestly,
they were getting abused by the system. And the funny thing is that the owner of the hospital, or the CEO out, they had like a $10 million yearly salary. Never set foot inside a hospital.
That's crazy. So everything we've talked about in this part, do you think that the whole structure in the U.S., the economy, is designed to make people fail, but allow the rich to be richer in a sense where if you don't work harder than the average person, you'll always be just average.
Of course, yeah. And the system is really well designed for that. Mm-hmm. It's really hard without help and without like, you know, a couple of generations, and it's really hard to ever reach to certain like financial like points. And maybe like $1 million is very like, you know, possible to do in your lifetime. Also because again, $1 million today is not $1 million 50 years ago. So $1 million is not like entirely impossible. It might take a little bit of, you know, investing and stuff, but it definitely is possible. But to become where you're 30, 40, $50 million and you're making $1 million a month, I think it's not going to happen unless you have some crazy invention. It's not going to happen maybe in your lifetime.
Yeah. Before like you could get like really wealthy just by working hard. Yeah. Like that's why I believe like the American dream. It's like anyone could come here, and as long as they worked hard, like put in the hours, put in the time, the sweat, they could like live comfortably.
It's very possible. It's very possible, but it's much harder than people think.
It's not just working hard doesn't really cut it that much.
And it's not like gonna happen from one day to another, or even like 1 year from to another. And that's what like a lot of people these days with social media and like all these like TikTok influencers, and they make it seem so easy. Oh, try drop shipping, try real estate, try that. They make it seem like they make it seem like it's something that it's possible to do within a year and become a millionaire. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but it's a lot harder than what people make it out to be. People think like, just do this. I quit my job. Just do the same.
Just find a property and buy using other people's money. As simple as that.
And I'm like, do you want to get into details? Oh yeah, buy my course.
They never explain how. I've seen those ads even on YouTube. It's like, hey, I'm selling this course for stocks. I literally watched one stock video and all my YouTube ads are, hey, buy my course. It's like what you were saying earlier, like not only do you, like what Paul was saying, like not only can you not work hard and be comfortable anymore, you have to like work hard at work and then work hard outside of work, or just quit your job. And a lot of people say just quit your job and do stocks, right? But stocks it's not so stable where you can just put some money in and expect money out. Exactly.
And the thing with stocks, like the best return on your money in stock is just dollar cost averaging. So what that means is like $100 every week into like S&P 500 or like some ETFs where it's a collection of like the best performing companies.
Top 500.
Top. So you know the best way to invest your money in the stock market is just to have $100 every week, put it to the side, buy some S&P 500, some ETFs where it's just the best 500 companies, and just do that, and then they pay dividends, and then
and just forget about it.
But that takes for you to have $4 million. It takes.
You need some passive income to like keep putting that 100 in, or else funds are just gonna dry up.
And then that takes 20-25 years for you to finally have $5 million. It's certainly possible to become a millionaire in our lifetimes. It's not impossible, and it's probably more possible than what people think, as long as they're able to, you know, compose themselves and like stay focused for 25 years, 20 years.
And just to make everyone know, we're not financial advisors.
So don't take financial advice.
Please don't take this advice seriously unless you want to. You know, you're in charge of your own money at the end of the day. Please don't sue us.
And there's this thing called like options. So options are derivatives of stocks, and for every dollar that the stock moves, it usually, like when it comes to options, you know, there's different like derivatives and different aspects of what makes an option move. But if there's $2-3 in a stock, and in an option is like $200-300.
Damn.
So at a certain point when I was 2020, I used to trade options, and
it's risky.
I made a lot of money.
You can lose a lot of money
and then I lost all of it once the market started to slow down.
Same thing for me. I won some money and then lost it all up. It's crazy. It's crazy how it happens. It's crazy.
It's almost like a gambling thing.
It's also a mental game. It's like let's say you make a play, you lose $500. It's like you're like, nah, I'm gonna put more on the next one so I can just make it right back. And then boom, you lose it again. And then you're like, nah, it's gonna bounce back. It's gonna bounce back up, and it just keeps dropping. And you're like, it's sometimes you sell and then it bounces back up. It's a mental game. It destroys you mentally.
And the thing is that like when I first started getting into stocks when COVID hit, and I quit my job and I was on my computer all day doing my research. I was able to turn I started out with $400, and then I think I lost like $50 first and $60, and I was down to my last like $150. And then I remember this was when stocks were just like skyrocketing.
Yeah, you know? Like GameStop, AMC.
No, even before that.
Oh, before that, okay.
Even before that, like I think it was
like
2019,
like the split with Tesla.
Yeah, and then Apple did a split as well.
Yeah, Apple did a split.
So the crazy thing is that day before Apple did a split,
you bought Apple.
The whole market was in red, right? And I was like eyeing these contracts for a while, for like a week or two, and then I bought one for like $80, and it was like 0.80 cents, and they were like 2 strike prices away from the money, and I bought it, whatever, and then the news comes out at 5 p.m. that Apple is gonna have a split, a 4 for 1.
4 for 1, yeah.
When I heard that, I was like cheering. I was like, the next day, I was like in my computer by like 9, just waiting for the stock market to open because I knew these were gonna skyrocket. So it was 9:30. I had like $150, and then when the stock market opened, in like a second, it spiked up to like $2,000.
Yeah,
Jesus,
it'd be like that.
Yeah, and then I let it rock, and then I think I sold that same contract at $4,600.
Damn,
that was the craziest, and I still have a screenshot of like the play. It's like $80 to like $4,600.
Yeah, that's how it happens sometimes.
And then I think those contracts reached 10K at one point because Apple just kept going. I wasn't brave enough to keep holding them.
With GameStop, it was crazy too.
You went into GameStop?
No.
Oh, okay. No.
I went into Apple with a split
before the split.
Into Tesla, before the split, before the 4 to 1.
Yeah.
But just as normal.
Yeah.
No, not options.
No, that was a crazy play. I just got lucky. You never know when they're gonna do these things.
So yeah, with that being said, that concludes the first part of the podcast. Let's take a quick break and we'll be back with the second part.
All right.